Right, it's Frontier Opening Bell. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the show. I'm Temple Ashaju. We've got Ali Kansachu, the founder and manager at Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Kenya, joining us this morning. Welcome on board. Bosun Omofaye, our editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, here with us on the show as well. Welcome, Bosun. You've got Joshua Odebisi joining us as an analyst from Vetiver Capital Management. Gentlemen, we're happy to have you on the show this morning. Let's look at the data. Nigeria was marginally down on Wednesday, 0.06%. You have the BRVM Stock Exchange positive by 1.25%. The Egyptian Stock Exchange went lower, sinking 1.54% midweek. And of course, Nairobi Stock Exchange positive by 1.17% on Wednesday. You have Johannesburg Stock Exchange in South Africa, marginally up 0.05% on Wednesday. Let's look at the Eastern African headlines, where NCBA Bank Kenya has got its first quarter 2021 earnings out. Total incorporated up by some 8%. PBT also very positive, over 60%. Profit after tax 74% higher. Safaricom makes up 62% of the Nairobi Securities Exchange now. Market capitalization, of course, very heavy at this point in time since the Ethiopian entry. We've got Kenya Central Bank holding rates at 7%. Briefing at 11 a.m. this morning. That's in the next few hours, actually. Ethiopia is to roll out new micro-lot coffee trading platform. And you have Lexo Energy installing EV charging stations in Kenya. Merge Exchange Limited reports $173.77 million loss in 2020. These are our headlines from the eastern part of Africa for the 27th of May. It's Children's Day, actually. Ali, let's defer them to you for some analysis.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Let me start with NCBA Bank. This is quite an eye-popping number, profit before tax up 60%. It's a very cheap bank, actually, post the merger on a price, earnings, and on a book value basis. It's now a tier one bank. It bulked up with NIC Bank and CBA. This was a merger of two banks, and a very good first quarter. There's been a slew of first quarter results out of the listed banks, and pretty much without exception, they've reported very strong earnings, in part because they've been able to release back some of the credit provisioning that they did in the last year, but overall painting a pretty rosy picture of the economy this year. Let's see if they can maintain that momentum. Credit growth is still in single digits in the country, but non-performing loans obviously has ticked lower by about 400 to 500 basis points in the last few months. So overall, it's a good tailwind for the banks, and you're seeing that in this first quarter sequence of results that we've received. Safaricom, 63% of the NSE. Somebody said we should stop calling it the NSE and call it the Safaricom Securities Exchange. It was a meme going around on Twitter. Obviously, we had this pop higher on the announcement of the Ethiopian news. I thought it was a little bit of a sugar high, and we'd see the price ease off. So let's just see in the next few seconds what happens. There's a lot of excitement, but there are also a lot of challenges with that entry. Look, it's a great market. It's a blue sky opportunity, 100 million people, largely underserved. The Safaricom, however, doesn't have a mobile money license. The M-Pesa business is a very profitable one. There are still challenges around repatriation of profits out of Ethiopia, and Safaricom, therefore, if you're investing in this, you're looking at them reinvesting in country for a number of years before they can start paying out what have been very handsome dividends, to be frank. But nevertheless, it's the big elephant in the room at the NSE, and excitement remains elevated about its entry into Ethiopia. Of course, Ethiopia has had different challenges. Egypt has done military alliances with practically every country that borders them except Eritrea. The Egyptian military was in Kenya yesterday, signing an agreement as well. So, we've got to keep an eye on that. And I saw there was a big flare up at the Sudan-Ethiopia border, where heavy artillery was used on both sides. So just keep an eye on unfolding developments over there. Kenya Central Bank, I think this is the 7th month in a row we've held rates steady at 7%. I don't think rates are going to move either way for quite a while. I think, the central bank's comfortable with keeping rates around here. They also released an accompanying commentary called "The Banking Sector Resilient." IMF is saying we've contracted 0.1% GDP-wise full year last year. But overall, my takeaway from that central bank commentary was positive and green shoots of a recovery. Ethiopia rolling out a new micro lot coffee trading platform, Ethiopia's Coffee, considered the best coffee in the world. And I think, they did have that commodities exchange that they developed. And I think they're trying to now drill down into the micro markets that they have there, which is great. It will liberate, the small-holder farmer and get hopefully better price transmission. Lex Energy, interesting development, installing EV charging stations in Kenya. There seems to be determination to target that market, so let's keep an eye on that. That optics of this merge exchange really caught me off guard. I'll have to look into that more closely. But $173 million loss for an exchange out of the Seychelles, that's a big number. I'll have to have a look into that and see whether that's there's a mistake, a digit in the wrong place. But, if that really is the number, that's extraordinary. What on earth have they been up to? I think they've been playing in the crypto market or something.
Interesting. What an interesting speculation you gave there. Perhaps they've been playing in the crypto markets, and that of course could have led to this kind of loss. But we'll probably have to bring back that headline for you to analyze better for us sometime soon. Bosun, you have been tracking some of the banks in the eastern part of Africa. Give us a sense of what you're learning.
I have just about a few seconds to I know right now, Patrick Njoroge, the central bank governor in Kenya, is speaking as this program is being recorded or pre-rec. So we'll get a full more details tomorrow. But again, the statement issued yesterday spoke to the accommodating policy stance, monetary policy stance of the Kenya Central Bank. The consensus by Bloomberg is that several SSA central banks will hold interest rates unchanged. So 2 days ago or 3 days ago, we got Nigeria's holding rate steady at 11.5. Kenya is still 7%. Mozambique earlier. South Africa earlier than that as well. So this raft of interest rate hold is just to see be accommodating somewhere around the middle of the year. Let's see what happens between July and November. And I'm sure Joshua and other big analysts will be able to take us also down that corridor. Thank you.
Many thanks, Bosun. Moving on now to the Western African headlines and, of course, key stories out of Nigeria. Central Bank of Nigeria licenses Lotus Bank as a new non-interest commercial bank. Lafarge Africa has got 8.3% rise in sales revenue to more than 230.6 billion naira in 2020. The earnings for that year just coming out. Nigeria's health tech, Kribembe, now closes some $2.6 million seed round for expansion. Cote d'Ivoire raises 38.5 billion CFA franc in stimulus bonds with 3-year maturity. And finally, you have Total Senegal declaring profit of some 6.1 billion CFA franc in the 2020 calendar year. I know that Vetiva Capital, one of the companies you have in your basket, is Lafarge WAPCO, listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange or Nigerian Exchange at this point, and they have recorded some 8.3% rise in sales revenue this time. Joshua, would you like to break that down for us?
Yes, just to briefly give an overview, they had a pretty solid year-on-year performance. I think overall they're still, lagging behind the giants that are Boa Cement and Dangote Cement. But after all the struggles that they had gone through a few years ago, they're starting to sort of recover. They've had a bit of a clear out of some of their less profitable assets, especially in South Africa, and now they're just looking towards the future, looking towards expanding into more markets in West Africa, expanding through the northeast and northwest, and into other West African countries. And I think that we're going to start to see a little bit more improvement in their profitability as time goes on, as they shift a lot more volumes, a lot more cement volumes through those markets, through the land borders, and expand that way. But overall, yeah, it was a pretty solid performance. I know that they've already declared a dividend. I forget specifically the amount that they declared, but I know that some investors would at least be happy that that was the case. So yeah, they did quite well.
Right, then. Any other headline you'd like to have a go with?
So just to look at the Islamic banking one, I think just briefly to overview and to highlight how important it is that we expand our Islamic banking offering in Nigeria. So according to some studies, the global total market cap total capital in Islamic banking is about $3.69 trillion. In Nigeria, the two biggest Islamic banks total about over $500 million in capital. So between the two of them, there's the market. Nigeria is seen as one of the biggest markets. I think one of the 15 biggest Islamic banking markets in the world. So there's a lot of opportunity in Nigeria, and I know we've seen quite a few Islamic banks come up. Islamic Finance has, helped to build several infrastructure projects. I know that the government has raised Sukuk bonds. We've seen examples of that in Lagos as well, where a Sukuk bond was used to build a pretty major road in Victoria Island. So things like this will get more people interested. It will also obviously diversify business in Nigeria. It will get more people interested in finance, and it will also allow an opening into markets that we were previously not able to enter into for various reasons, specifically Sharia law. Things like that are very important in the northern part of the country, and if we're able to give them more offerings that will bring them into the fold, into the traditional, let's say, financial fold, it would obviously deepen our economy quite significantly.
Many thanks, Joshua. Thank you so much for those contributions there. Bolson, any comments on the Lotus Bank? I'm not too sure if Lotus Bank has any relationship with Lotus Capital, and if there be, perhaps the Sukuk bonds, which they've been able to help the federal government, make possible, has actually paid off eventually.
Yes, thank you so much, Temple. Let me quickly, I was quickly checking what Ali spoke about the merge exchange there. The figure actually was $173,775, not in millions. We apologize for that typo there. I just quickly went to recheck. We have the Merge Exchange Limited and the subsidiaries statement of profit and loss for last year. Actually, operating expenses for Merge Exchange went up to about $1.041 million for last year, and that was where the loss came from in terms of operating loss of $196,988,000. So that figure was actually in $173,775. The reported operating expenses that was significantly higher for the full year ended December 31st, 2020. Thank you very much, Ali, for bringing that up. $173 million would be a total wipeout, if you ask me. So Ali, what do you think?
Thank you for that. I was quite surprised at that number, because it really is the smallest exchanges. And I think even if one of the big ones had reported such a number, it would have been a debacle. So thanks for the correction.
Thank you. Thank you for that very much. Thank you. We appreciate that. Keeping an eye on everything for us on the side. We appreciate that. Speaking to Lotus, yes, that was Lotus Capital. The announcement came yesterday from Hajara Adiola herself, who's the managing director of Lotus Capital, and she made that announcement at one international conference. We did a pre-rec yesterday on ethical finance, and she made that announcement that the license actually came this week from the central bank. So the license is still the signature of Godwin Emefiele is still very, very fresh on the paper, by the way, on the license. So that's going to be a major player again, Lotus Bank. So it's Ajara Atiola, who's been the pioneer of Islamic banking, Islamic Islamic products in Nigeria, will be the chairman of the new Lotus Bank Limited, and that will be run by an entire new board, separate from Lotus Capital, which is an investment banking arm. So they've got an investment bank, which is Lotus Capital PLC, and they've got Lotus Bank. Whether any one of them will come for listing on NGX very soon, we're going to ask in the days ahead to find out. But this is a new addition and deepening the horizon of Islamic banking. Just like Joshua Davis said, look, the whole Nigeria is leading in sub-Saharan Africa, even within the North African space in terms of Islamic banking or Islamic financial products. We've seen Sunu Assurance here with very strong footprints across the rest of West Africa and others. Very strong also in Islamic non-interest insurance. Again, and she spoke yesterday very briefly about the need to merge non-interest banking with ESG, which is the sustainable funding products. So she spoke about the need to have a convergence of what you call climate ethical finance on one hand, and then having non-interest banking, which is Sharia compliant on the other hand. So she's looking for a convergence of these two worlds in the banking and the financial services space. And I think that's one major takeaway for this forthcoming summit. We'll see that in June. Thank you.
Many thanks, Bosun. South African headlines now, where Pepco Group price jumps on 10% on listing Warsaw Stock Exchange. You have JSE listed Baldwin Properties announcing a BEE deal. That's a Black Economic Empowerment deal with a lot of blacks in South Africa. Mediclinic International PLC says full year 2021 revenues down by 3% to £2.995 million. New Gold Limited issues fresh 100,000 debentures. And you have Zimbabwe inflation slowing further to 161.9% in May versus 194% in April. We'll come back to you now with these South African headlines, Ali, for understanding.
So let me start back to front. Zimbabwe's inflation trend obviously improving. 194 to 161.9 is pretty impressive, although I don't know whether we'll reach Mthuli Kube's target of double digits, low double digits later in the year. Interestingly, the record high inflation on the continent is no longer Zimbabwe's banner. It now belongs to Sudan, where the inflation rate is in the 300%. So look, that's a good trend. Zimbabwe also a few days ago announced that they were looking to list the CBZ Bank on the Victoria Falls Exchange. If they can pull that off, that will be a significant development as well. Pepco Group jumps 10% on listing at the Warsaw Stock Exchange. It's quite interesting. It takes me back to Naspers, who listed some shares on the Amsterdam Exchange. There is a perception amongst some corporates in South Africa that their share prices are not reflecting their true value. So I think it's interesting that Pepco took the opportunity with the Warsaw Stock Exchange, and it had a very robust opening. But it speaks to the internationalization today of finance and how corporate treasurers have got to explore all opportunities in order to maximize shareholder value. JSE Baldwin Properties announces the BEE deal. We should see some more of these. And New Gold Limited issuing fresh 100,000 debentures. Obviously, gold prices hit a 4.5-month high yesterday, and we should see much more corporate action activity out of those types of resource stocks.
Thank you so much. Thanks a great deal, Ali. Bosun, let's come to you with any of the headlines you'd like to speak to.
I think when we're speaking to inflation, I think Joshua will be a better place when it is to is the one who is a research analyst. I'll defer to Joshua on this.
Right, Joshua, one or two comments?
Well, obviously, we know the historical the historical effects that Zimbabwe has felt from inflation, and I think just the fact that it is still in the high, 100% means that there's still quite a lot that has to be done on the policy side to sort of, bring that further down. However, I think overall, definitely we'll have to just keep watching to see whether there will be further improvements. I think obviously one small or one slight disinflation is not enough to say that there's maybe a strong trend that is emerging, but eventually, I think, hopefully, with a few changes in policy, with pretty simple, monetary policy adjustments, hopefully they can get back on track.
All right, and thank you so much. Thanks a great deal, Joshua. Moving on down to the Northern African headlines. You have Egypt securing of $500,000 grants from Canada to support health sector. Egypt's death rate drops 20% within 3 years despite coronavirus. And the Central Bank of Egypt has got bank's net foreign assets hitting record high of over $20 billion. MSE, you have HPS achieves 12.4% rise in revenue to 171.8 million dirhams. Arthur Chabin is new managing director of Tunisia Ivorian company Equity SA. The Egyptian debt record that has continued to tailspin in recent time is an interesting story. Let me hear your thoughts, Joshua, first before we go to Ali.
Well, like you said, it's a little bit interesting, just because we thought that Egypt have been quite good at managing themselves with regards to foreign debt, foreign investment, and things like that. And I was, for several sessions now, I've been talking about us sort of emulating them to a certain extent. But to be honest, it's all about managing or effective use of the money, because, as they say, you can't use long-term debt to service or to, or rather, you can't use short-term debt to service long-term goals. So it's all about managing your goals and you managing your milestones. And so, more than anything, the size of the debt is immaterial next to what is being implemented on the ground, whether the right infrastructure is being put in place, whether the right value is being created. And I think that's the most important thing, is value being created in the economy that will, justify these debts 5-10 years from now. Those are the big questions that need to be answered. So I'm not too worried yet, simply because I know that financially they have a good handle on managing their foreign exchange, and they have a good handle on their foreign investment. So as long as they're able to continue to attract foreign investment and generate or create value, then the debt should not be an issue, especially when it serves a purpose like this particular debt will inevitably do.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Ali, this is a question that Joshua has been raising, although we know that in the report that was released on this particular story, the Minister of Finance, Mohamed Maite, actually mentions that this has actually been reflective in the lives of the citizens, the daily lives of the citizens. Can you possibly confirm that to us?
Yes, so what I would say, there's striking similarities for me between Egypt and Nigeria. If you look at population, if you look at the foreign exchange rate, and if you look at how the direction, there was a bifurcation, the route Egypt took was to take that shock of devaluation, then to assert very joined up policy making thinking, and make it very easy for investors to come into the Egyptian market to try and exploit the opportunity that Egypt was providing. Whereas in Nigeria, the FX rate, Nigeria did not go down that road. It did not want that. It did not want to experience that shock. It created multiple exchange rates. It entirely confused not only its own citizens, many of whom went into things like cryptocurrency, but it confused the international investor base, who basically got, what either trapped and couldn't get out, and thinking to themselves, if we go in and they adjust the effects, what's going to happen to us? So I think Egypt is a lesson. Look at these results now. Debt rate has dropped. They had a big surge in their debt rate. They brought it under control. They're the darling of all these multilaterals and, who are throwing money at that regime. Now, of course, there was a sacrifice that the citizens made because their per capita income went down quite dramatically during this period. But let me also remind you that the per capita income in Nigeria has been going down now for 6 to 7 years. So Nigeria too needs that catalyst for growth. So I think if you look at it, to me, there is no choice. And I think, interestingly, this week, I saw the report that Nigeria is trying to unify the exchange rate. There was a small devaluation, according to Bloomberg, of 7.6%. I think Nigeria's got to bite the bullet. They've got to go and speak to these guys in Egypt, say, how did you do it? Because they managed to do it. And then, as Joshua was saying, you've got to make sure that your borrowing is being applied to investments that are providing a return on investment and not just plugging a gap and, basically servicing your overdraft. So absolutely, I think, this is a challenge that Nigerian policymakers have simply got to now deal with. Otherwise, the market's going to deal with them. I saw Nigeria's stats tweeting that, in 2011, it was costing about 25 naira of taxes out of every 100 to service the debt, and now it's above 80. So you can see we are coming to the point when if you don't get hold of the situation will get hold of you. And I think, Egypt, whatever you got to say, people have issues with the amount of repression under this regime. But what you got to say is that, from a financial point of view, they've understood the markets, they've dealt with it, they made the sacrifice, and they're reaping a reward.
Thank you very much, Ali. Bosun, your final comments.
Yeah, I think my final point is around the Egypt's net foreign asset for the banks, over $20 billion US. Look, once you touch on one good point on reforms, it has a cascading effect, the rest of the value chain. So I just say congratulations to Egypt, and I think they have all things going well for them. There are a few areas to knock about, but again, look at the latest Moody's report on Nigeria, which came out yesterday, which is just a review of the country's position. Quite a whole lot of gaps there, fault lines that we need to fill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bosun Omofaya, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. I appreciate your comments. Ali Kansachu, thanks a great deal for your analysis on the show this morning. You are the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Kenya. Thanks a great deal. Joshua Odebisi, we appreciate your analysis as well. He joined us from Vertiva Capital Management. Gentlemen, appreciate your presence on the show this morning. This has been the show for today. I'm Temple Ashaju. Next time, we'll sit together and chat again. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.
Thank you.